webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the HISTED website along with the previous sessions in this series. My name is Tara Whalen of the HISTED Foundation, and I'm excited to welcome you to the fourth session of the Conservation Finance Learning Lab, Corporate Engagement, Successfully Selling Your Project. Thank you all for joining us today, and thanks to my co-host Lee Welpton and the Conservation Finance Network team for their partnership in building and delivering this series. If you have questions throughout the program, please ask them in the chat. We will have time at the end for our panelists to answer them, and we will also be adding helpful resources throughout the program in the chat, so keep your eye on that. Before I turn it over to Lee, I want to acknowledge the team that worked so hard to bring this series together. From HISTED, we have Jody Kaloji, Jean Ammermuller, Twassert Vaughn, and Fiona Lunt, who have been working behind the scenes on communication and tech, and Jackson Moeller from the Conservation Finance Network, who has worked to plan and design this course, as well as bring together all our speakers for this series. And with that, I'm going to ask Lee to introduce our panel and tell us a bit about what we have planned for today.
Thank you so much, Tara, and welcome to session 4. Today, we're going to focus on cracking the nut for corporate engagement, including some trends, tips, and tricks for honing and then making your pitch to the company that you are targeting to work with and build shared value. I'm Lee Welpton, Director of the Conservation Finance Network. Our fundamental business is to expand people's capacity, confidence, and connections to execute on various conservation finance approaches. We bridge sectors, we bridge silos, we bridge issues to help people find the capital they need to advance the pace and scale of their efforts. I am beyond thrilled for today's session, as corporate partnerships have never been more important or more difficult to navigate among the conservation community. I expect to learn a heck of a lot alongside all of you, our attendees today. I'll also share a quick word of thanks to the HISTED team, to my colleague Jackson, and of course to all of you for joining us. We hope this Learning Lab series provides practical insight and guidance to help you try something new, whether that's as simple as picking up the phone and calling someone, following up on a lead, starting to build relationships and gather information that are actually going to help you secure and advance, secure funding, secure financing, or advance your project efforts. Now on to our illustrative speakers and presenters today. We are joined by none other than Hall of Fame corporate partnership coach Jenna Thompson, the founder and CEO of Ocelot Company. As founder and CEO, Jenna is a leadership coach and a strategic partnership and communications expert focused on environmental markets and social impact. We're also joined by corporate engagement guru and spirit guide to building shared value, Stephanie Brady, founding and managing director of IFG Studios, Inc. Stephanie is an experienced growth and innovation leader, accelerating impact for NGOs and purpose brands by crafting or revitalizing brand trust, models of change, program design, partnership communications, funding, and engagement assets. I'll say Jenna and Stephanie are former colleagues of mine and longtime colleagues of each other as a dynamic team and power duo when it comes to building corporate partnerships centered on shared values, as well as coaching the conservation community to success. If your organization is trying to gear up your strategy for corporate engagement, I highly recommend getting in touch with Jenna and Stephanie, and you're about to learn why through today's session. Last but not least, we're joined by the Swiss Army knife of Dr. Bronner's corporate philanthropy, Elisa Hauser, the project manager of Constructive Capital at Dr. Bronner's, where she helps to manage the company's corporate giving program. As part of its constructive capitalism model, Dr. Bronner's is committed to giving away at least a third of its profits every year to support activism and charitable causes. We really do have a treat for you today with our corporate engagement strategy, Successfully Selling Your Project. Our incredible presenters, Jenna and Stephanie, are going to teach you how to engage corporate partners and funders. We're going to enlist Elisa's pointed and practical advice from the vantage point of someone who's heard it all in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly of being pitched on the corporate side. Our presenters are going to model a successful conversation for how you do so, and then coach 2 of our audience member volunteers through that process live. Spoiler alert, real quick, Elisa is here to share her insight. one aspect of which will be why it is not effective at all to petition people like her cold via the chat box of a webinar or a cold email. I'm sure she's seen it all, but we really hope attendees won't fill her inbox or chat her up in the chat box today with cold inquiries, because we're about to learn why that really is an ineffective way to engage a potential corporate partner or funder. So for today, just in terms of general remarks, the conservation community tends to assume corporations will absolutely take an interest in our efforts and use their deep pockets to help further our project efforts. But anyone who's given it a shot knows that cracking the nut on corporate engagement is a crowded, ever-changing landscape that can be somewhat fruitless if you take the wrong approach. So today is about what is that right approach? How do you crack the nut? How do you start to center on strategic alignment with a potential corporate partner? How do you build those relationships? And how do you effectively show your shared value? It's about communicating what you're working on and why it's in a corporate's interest to care. We hope that everyone joining us today is going to walk away with the right-sized perspective on whether or how to align your efforts with corporate players and interests relevant to your operating context. So with that, I'm going to hit the pause button on myself and hand things over to our fearless leader, Jenna, to get us started. Thanks, folks.
Yay! Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Lee. Thank you, Tara. Thank you so much to the HiStead team. Steph and Elisa and I are thrilled to be joining you all today. We are going to have some fun. This is a relaxed presentation. Even so, I might even ask everybody to literally just stretch their arms, give it a little bit of a shake, and feel free to interrupt us. Feel free to engage throughout the chat. Lee will and her team will be monitoring questions as well. And we have two fearless volunteers. We'll be doing a little bit of role playing for you today, and then we're going to ask you all to participate with us, but absolutely, first and foremost, what we're going to ask is that you be able to walk away and be comfortable and find an easy way, and as you'll see soon, almost a Mad Libs approach to be able to identify a comfortable fit for a partner, perhaps a corporate partner, perhaps it's just a general funder, and that you can create a really compelling intro to gain some support for the projects that you're working on. So Steph, I don't know if you're able to share your presentation. I think we could just see your background.
You cannot see my screen. Okay. That is interesting. Shows on my end. Let's see. Let's try it one more time. All right. Can you all see that now?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. This was our nice intro slide that I thought was up while you were giving that wonderful context. But absolutely, now that you can see our screen, fantastic.
So as Lee mentioned, my name is Jenna. I have 17 years formerly with the Conservation Fund, building their strategic partnerships, and really extraordinarily, I think I had a dream job. And I was really proud to be able to use projects like carbon and forestry and land conservation and parks with purpose as on-ramps to corporate engagement. And that enabled me to generate long-lasting partnerships with Apple, with Dell, with Delta, with Disney, with U-Haul, with UPS, and many, many more, whose dollars were then translated into doing good. And I'm so excited to be joined today with one of my former esteemed colleagues, Stephanie Brady. Steph's superpower, I think, is being able to simplify stories that are relevant and compelling. And Steph, if you'll take us to the next slide, we'll just dive in. I want to cue Elisa here. So as Lee so aptly brought us in together, Elisa's superpower is that not only does she work for an awesome company, but she also helps to build some awesome infrastructure within that corporate giving environment. She has been on both sides of the for-profit and the nonprofit aisle, just like Stephanie. And I think what we'll find today is some very unusual perspectives. Dr. Bronner's is not only a natural products company, but it's also an international leader in ethical, sustainable supply chains, fair play, fair trade. It is also the second ranking B corporation worldwide because of its dedication to creating a better world through every single thing that it does, from its raw ingredient sourcing to its wastewater recycling, and to being a major player in the efforts to decriminalize drugs in the United States. And we asked Elisa to join us today, not only because she is so awesome, but because she has decades of experience both in capacity building and fundraising for nonprofits, and now on the corporate side, the giving away. And we've asked her if she would be willing to share just a little bit of background on Dr. Bronner's approach to corporate philanthropy, because it is absolutely unique and it will shape some of the role playing that we're going to do today.
Thanks, Jenna. It's so great to be here. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Because this is an environmental network, I decided I was going to sit outside, but that also comes with a lot of noise. So Jenna, if you can kind of flag me down, if you hear too much noise, I'll go inside. But yes, I have construction happening and fire trucks. So it's a whole lot going on. So I have been at the company almost 2 years at Dr. Bronner's. Prior to that, I spent over 20 years as a nonprofit executive director, which means I've raised millions and millions and millions of dollars from individuals, foundations, corporations, all sorts of sources. So I have definitely been in the fundraising shoes, and it's part of my DNA. So I absolutely love being part of these conversations. Dr. Bronner's is a really unusual corporation. It's different from any corporation I've raised money for, sitting on the other side of the aisle. We are very relationship focused. We are less interested in what we're going to get for the donation. Like, you would never see Dr. Bronner's standing on a stage with one of those like huge checks that shows us giving, you know, those pictures of the like $5,000 giant checks, and it shows somebody handing it to the poor little nonprofit. We would never do something like that. That's just not how Dr. Bronner's rolls. We're really actually interested in the issue areas we fund, and we have 11 different core issue areas that we focus on. Decriminalizing drugs is probably our number one area. We've done a lot in the area of psychedelics, and actually some of you may have seen in the past week, our company just, I think, was the first in the country that they're actually paying for psychedelic assisted therapy for employees and their families as an employee benefit. So that was like on the front page of the New York Times last week. So that commitment goes from deep inside with the employees all the way out to actual working on political campaigns, ballot measures, advocacy, access. We also fund a lot in the area of regenerative organic agriculture, fair trade and fair wage, children, youth, and families. We do some funding in our backyard, which is San Diego, California. We like to take an intersectional approach to what we fund. So we're always looking through a racial justice lens or looking at an issue through multiple lenses. We also fund a lot in animal advocacy. That's been a long time commitment of the company, civil and human rights, and then kind of a catch-all thing that we call community betterment. So that's sort of our bucket of programs we fund that just support people in communities in a really localized way. We have we kind of divide the world of issues into 3 buckets. We look at direct services, personal transformation, like what is the change that can be made on a human level, on a one-to-one level. Then we also look at what are things that are directly fighting what's bad, fighting against systems and structures that do not serve our world and our communities. And then what can we fund that builds a new paradigm and creates the future? So typically when we really invest in an issue area, we'll look at all three of those perspectives and try to balance them and try to have investments in all three of those things. We try to fund ongoingly. So when we make a commitment, we really like to keep it for years and years and years. We have a lot of organizations that we've been funding for 10, 15 years. And thus, sometimes it's really hard to get on the roster of Dr. Bronner's, because when we fund something, it's with the intention of ongoing funding. We don't have a corporate foundation. All of our funding comes directly from revenue and from profit. So the company tries to take any money that isn't necessary for business operations and for growing the company and give it away. So that's been at a minimum a third. Typically in the last couple of years, it's been more like 43% of profit. So it's a pretty big number for a for-profit company to give away. And I could keep going and going. I utterly love working at this company. So there's just so many things that are embedded in the DNA of the company that really make it a company that's about making the world better. And philanthropy is one of those channels. But I'll get into more as we go today and hand it back over to you, Jenna.
Perfect. Thank you, Elisa. So as we work through our sessions today and really do think about how do you know if someone like a Dr. Bronner's is a fit for your project? You have limited amount of time. You need, with land, oftentimes tens of millions of dollars when we're thinking about large scale conservation finance. You know, $5,000 check is awesome, standing on the side of a forest or the side of a mountain, but it is not going to cut it. And so thinking very strategically about where do you find those partnership fits, and then how can you make the most compelling introduction? We're going to play a couple of games, and we're going to continue to think about what Elisa has shared with us. And then we've got some extraordinary guest volunteers who are going to help us practice. And then Steph and Elisa and I are going to practice as well. So Steph, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm very grateful.
Fantastic. I'm so glad to be a part of the trifecta here. We're going to have a very interactive discussion, and we're going to just roll up our sleeves and dive into this workshop that's going to hit some of these specific learning goals. I wanted to just call attention to the number one obstacle in pursuing corporate support. Please use the chat if you really want us to call attention to a specific obstacle or challenge you're having. But I also want to recognize a couple of the most common challenges that came up when you registered. So thank you for sharing that. A couple that came up frequently was, hey, the challenge is managing expectations. Another is, I really just need to diversify funds. How might I do that? And really the corporate funding stream, I want to have a more intentional balance in my diversified funding portfolio for that. I also struggle a little bit with who do I even target and what do I say? I also sort of a challenge with how do I find the right alignment? Here's what we need, but what do they need? So those are the things that are coming up that we heard most significantly from all of you. Pop in the chat. We'll continue to monitor that and use your sort of input on challenges, obstacles, so that as we're going through this workshop, we can reflect on those. But I want to call it
one additional thing that's come up in the chat is just location. I live in a small city and there's no corporate headquarters, so we'll just keep an eye on that.
Great, great. We'll talk a little bit about that too. Okay, fantastic. Want to at least level set this discussion with trends in strategic philanthropy from the corporate perspective. The changes is that traditional goodwill community grant making is decreasing. They're no longer the traditional corporate social responsibility of okay, I'm going to give away money because it's expected of me, is shifting. It has to make sense to their business and their brand and what they're trying to accomplish. Awards are more closely aligned now to those brand and business goals. It's not tangential. They certainly are taking a much harder line looking for measurable, verifiable impacts. Just because, gee, isn't this a good idea? Wouldn't you like to support it? They really have to have some hard measurable impacts. They also are focusing a lot more on employee and customer engagement in terms of philanthropy. If these are the big changes, then what's the opportunity around that? The good news in some of these shifts is funding resources are expanding. There are other money that is coming from not just the corporation, they might have a foundation, as we've mentioned before, but there's also some dollars coming from marketing or human resources departments, okay? They are looking a lot more for what are the co-benefits of a community project. Not only, okay, is this project within either where I'm headquartered, where my employees are located, or where my operation centers are located. I want to know, is there anything about what your project funding opportunities are that make a bigger difference in the broader community livability? So the co-benefits are a tremendous opportunity. Certainly open to multi-year support. Dr. Bronner is a great example. Thanks for tipping us off to a little bit of those inside tracks. They are looking for multi-year support, at least 2-year support. The national companies are also saying, hey, we're going to empower our smaller local offices to make decisions. That could be as simple as a big grocery chain that has local presence. It could be a big tech firm or a cellular company that has some local offices. These national companies are definitely empowering their local offices. And then mid-size and smaller companies, they're getting more active. They really are. They are an insurgence. Just because they might be small, they might be a lot more responsive and responsible in your local community than some of the bigger companies. So when you think about transferring those trends, how do I really think about corporate support? I've got money in the middle of this, right? And that's green. A lot of times you'll think, really what I want from companies is money. But there is a very broader sense of how you gain support from in-kind donations. It could be, I need a van. I need resources, and it could be some in-kind donations that you can get that are very valuable to your project. On the other side, it's employee engagement. Do I have a park cleanup? Do I have a tree planting sort of initiative in my community that I could get the employees involved in? You also have this sense of leveraging corporate support from an influence perspective, as well as a participation. I just want to discuss a little example of each of those. Influence might be that you have a corporation where your project is, that they actually just recognize the importance of it. It could be that they speak on it, they provide a quote for you about it, so you can tap into their influence as a way of creating momentum for other funding. That's valuable in many cases. The other is participation. Is there anyone on their executive team that could be a part of your project advisory committee, board of advisors, anything in terms of participation that again can give you leverage? So there's a bigger, broader view of corporate support. And we'll be talking about that with these exercises that we're going to go through. Before we do that, some of the challenge is, who in the world would even care about what I'm doing? How do I approach these corporations? Think of going hunting for corporations on 3 areas, 3 big buckets. First of all, is your project aligned to their philanthropic goals? That will take a little research, but what are they already involved in? Where are they already giving? What does their website already say they care about? So project alignment is one big bucket. Okay. They may or may not be in your local geography, but the ones that are, that's the second bucket, this shared geography and community. And it's not just the headquarters. Do they have a shared interest? Operations center, a customer service center, etc., that aligns with where your project is located. The other third bucket, and again, the notion of we are 6 degrees of separation, the world is getting even smaller. You will be surprised. Start mining your local networks, who you know, and the other thing I'll add, who they know. Sources like LinkedIn give you a real good example of you might be connected to so-and-so, but oh, they're networked to that person. And so you can ask for an introduction, ask for an information of when's the next time you might be talking to them. So mine your network and then look at your local influencers, okay? And influences, what's happening in your community that might have an intersection to a new company coming in. So kind of think about creating your target list in these 3 areas. But then what on earth are you going to say when you finally, this is who I want to talk to. I'm going to think about approaching this specific person, whether it's via email, on the phone, at a local community event, or I run into them in the elevator or my kid's soccer practice. You never know. Think about creating this partner introduction as a way of saying, I'm going to fit 2 pieces together. I'm going to take off my sales hat, alleviate this pressure that I have about, oh my God, I'm not a salesperson. I'm trying to really, it's a very important project and we need support. Simply think about you're creating alignment and you're going to try to fit 2 pieces of the puzzle together. The first piece being your program impact. What are you working on? Why does it matter, right? That's one piece. To the other piece of what are their business goals and why should they care? These 2 pieces coming together. So we're going to break that down. When you think about this magic of these 2 pieces coming together, we found for the decade plus we've been doing this, and as all the trends emerge, we find success is critical in this partner introduction. It's powerful. It's short, compelling, and relevant. And if we can get you to think about, hey, I'm going to master the partner introduction. I'm going to figure out how these 2 pieces of the puzzle can work together. And when you do that, you have an easy formula for even elevator speeches, email introductions, a strong opening for a phone call or a meeting. Really gain more immediate attention. Some of you mentioned, gosh, it's very, very competitive for funding. This could be that spark that at least can get their attention. The other thing I will mention here, it's really a spark to build new relationships because quite frankly, as we all have known, sometimes it takes a while. It's a cultivation practice to earn support from companies. It's not immediate. So if we can really get this partner introduction down, it's that spark that can ignite really strong relationships, even beyond companies. Foundations would have the same mentality. Other type of funders, financiers are thinking, what are you working on and why it matters? And why should I care relative to my business? So we're going to work on putting those together. Now, some tips before we roll up our sleeves and give you some demos, break this down a little bit easier. Okay, keep it simple, short, and compelling. Please avoid terminology and jargon. Nothing's worse than when you really think, oh, I've got my partner introduction nailed, and yet ABC, LMNOP, TKJ, nobody knows what that is. So keep it super simple. You know, it's almost as if your sister, niece, or mother needs to understand what you're saying. That's a good tip. Practice on them and get feedback. Practice on your colleagues and get some feedback. Hey, if you ran into the elevator with me, how does this sound? So we're going to roll up our sleeves. Jenna will take it from here and we're going to bounce back and forth. Elisa, we're going to ask you for some feedback and then we'll do some practice with some audience members. So take it away, Jenna.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steph. So we're going to practice on the nonprofit side. We're going to practice on the corporate side, and then we're going to pull it together. One of my favorite episodes working with Stephanie was in that acronym soup, talking about FLTFA. So the Federal Lands Transfer something Act, right? So the idea that there is this acronym soup, we've got to kind of put it away. But in a nutshell, we are saying, what are we working on and why should we care? So often nonprofits have a tendency to talk all about the how, and we completely forget about the why. So our goal is to put it together in something that's short and compelling. So Steph, next slide. Man, less than 30 seconds. How often have we all sat there and thought about an old school game, whether we're playing this with our kids now or nieces or nephews? But there's a fun and easy tool that we use when we coach partnership teams, and using Mad Libs is one of those. And so Steph, if you'll go to the next slide, we're going to take that Mad Lib approach and literally start to pull it together with just a couple of easy and key sentences. And so this very first one, when we think about conservation finance, go ahead and pop something in the chat. I want a thing. We are working hard to protect. I want you to pop into the chat a thing, right? So in my old school perspective, it was we're working hard to protect working forests. We're working hard to protect a network of trails in our hometown. We're working hard to protect a sacred site honoring our First Nations people. We're working hard to protect my family's farm. So pop into the chat something that your team is working hard to protect. Rivers in the West. Thanks, Stacy. Connected wildlife forests, living shorelines. Oh, I don't know what that is. I'm going to go into that. An open landscape in the Altar Valley. Clean drinking water. Fabulous. Okay. Next slide or next section, Steph. So you've got your idea. We're working hard to protect. That is literally your first sentence. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, we're working hard to protect wetlands. Okay, well, that will positively impact what? So for the working forest example, we're working hard to protect working forests that will positively impact foresters, wildlife, and our water supply. We're working hard to protect a network of trails in our hometown that will positively impact everyone who lives and vacations here. We're working hard to protect the sacred site honoring First Nations people, those whose stories have yet to be told. Right? So give the impact right away. So the person who said rivers, pop into the chat that will positively impact. Go ahead and pop in, Stacy. Rivers will positively impact in the West what? Communities, water supply, and fragile ecosystems. Thank you. Great. My family's farm. We're working hard to protect my family's farm that will positively impact my aunt, my uncle, who are third generation dairy farmers, their staff, and everyone who buys their milk. Next. Who benefits? So what? Right? So we're working so hard to protect these these working forests that will positively impact foresters, wildlife, and our water supply, and create more responsible supply chain for businesses who use trees. We're working hard to protect a network of trails for our home that will positively impact everyone who lives and vacations here and benefit our neighborhoods and the businesses who depend on outdoor recreation. So taking the same idea, Stacy, putting you on the spot again, who benefits from your rivers in the West, pop in that chat. And if someone doesn't mind popping in the who benefits for their section. And Maggie, I'm going to put you on the spot as well. Who benefits from your wetlands? Thinking it through the family farm, my family's farm to positively impact my aunt, my uncle, my third generation dairy farmers, their staff, and everyone who buys their milk, and will benefit our community with access to healthy food and the farmers who are seeking a living wage. So Stacy's saying the benefit will come from communities that live by the riverbanks, depend, I think, on the water supply, and businesses who depend on the recreation economy. Great. Anyone else have a who benefits? Maggie says waterfowl and people within the communities. Great. Okay, next slide.
I think just, Jen, if I could mention something about this first Mad Lib formula, is you basically have 3 fill in the blanks, right? And we're oversimplifying on purpose here. One, it's a great way to practice for you all. It's also an effective tool to get to the essence of what you want to say. You have very little time and you've got to grab some attention. And it really helps to think about, you have an introductory, we are working hard to protect, and it's your initiative. And we purposely separated that will positively impact what, and never forget, and benefits who or how. Oftentimes we find we fall short and just say, oh, we're working hard on it, here's our initiative, and it will, impact communities, water supply, and fragile ecosystems. But just that one next step of filling in that third blank.
Before you switch over, Cam, I have a friend on this call. I'm going to put on the spot.
Okay.
So Cam, Mr. Chinook, CT, this is JT. I want you to do this one on the fly here.
Okay.
So give us your very simple 30-second version of what you're working on right now, your project where you're raising funds. So we're working hard to protect. Got to take yourself off of mute.
Off mute.
We want to hear you. He can't take himself off of mute. So Michelle, I see that you are plugged in with your headphones. Would you be willing, Michelle Lecare, would you be willing to give us an example of we're working hard to protect that will positively impact and benefit who, how? You'll take yourself off mute. We'd love to hear what you're saying.
I just managed to do it for what it's worth.
Is that there? I think I did it. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
go. Michelle first. Let's go Michelle first and then Cam.
Okay. Okay. We're working hard to protect water quality, which will positively impact everyone within our watershed and benefit the health of everyone in the area.
Perfect. Thanks. Cameron?
Working hard to protect Central Valley farmland that will positively impact water quality, water quantity, and habitat in the Central Valley, and benefit small farmers who are most compromised by drought conditions.
Awesome.
Excellent. And the nuance there, Cam, to call out quantity and quality. You've got my attention because you've made the difference between them simply. And then you went to a very specific benefit with those small farmers. Fantastic. Thank you for allowing us to put you both on the spot, right? And as you keep doing this, even Jen and I to this day, as we're building corporate partnerships and communication strategies with the nonprofits we work with, we still wrestle with this. We have to go through 3 or 4 or 5 iterations of this, but it's our go-to framework. And it's okay that you start somewhere and you keep refining it. Let's move to the second piece of the puzzle. Now that you focused on, got sort of an idea of what your project impact is, let's talk about their business goals. Why should they care? And again, in less than 30 seconds, you have to be able to answer that question. Here's what I'm working on, but here's why you should care. We've got a similar Mad Lib. And here's how we're going to break that down. Okay. I love Mad Libs. I mean, everyone can work with that. It's a great training tool for your teams too. Even some of your board members, the things that you can actually, you don't even have to have, professional fundraisers to use this as a tool and a template. We start with, based on, could be Dr. Bronner's commitment to the health and well-being of animal welfare, right? Whatever that impact focus, this takes a little bit of research, but you have some idea. It could be based on Kroger's commitment to bringing local fresh produce into the families of everyone living in our community, right? That's how you would solve that first phrase of the Mad Lib. This project could help you achieve goal 1 and improve goal 2. And you're filling out where the goal 1 and 2 directly aligns with what you're trying to do. And our project could help those small farmers ensure they have a freshwater supply, quantity and quality of water, and improve your ability to deliver on your promise for fresh produce from a sustainable long-term solution. So, based on your company's commitment to, this project could help you achieve this and improve that. And you're kind of filling this out. This is where what you're working on matters to them. And I just use the Kroger example because we think we have a Kroger in every, or a type of grocery store, depending upon where you live. Many of them are making a commitment to represent local fresh farmers, support a diversity and equity of local farming, and support local regenerative agriculture. So if you think about the project that would help them achieve being able to support those farmers and improve their supply chain, their ability to source those. That's an example. Any questions? I'll see if anyone has any chat, or if you have an example, the ones that have given examples, thank you for the ongoing interaction in the chat. If you can give us an example of maybe one you've pitched, and now that you think about it, you tried to establish a partnership, how might you fill in at least goal 1 or 2? Anything in the chat, we'll monitor that.
Stephanie, can I real quick chime in on
Yes,
this?
please.
I want to really underscore number 1. And in particular, the impact focus. I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten something like this, and the impact focus is not something we do. Or it's so generic, it's really clear that the person hasn't even gone to our website. So just make sure when you use this, I think it can be really effective, but mirror what they're saying on their website, or mirror something that is complementary. Like, almost think of this as like a funhouse mirror that makes you look really beautiful. And you are, impact focus is, what is the most beautiful version of this company I can feed back to them? So as opposed to some generic boring thing or something that actually isn't what they do.
And a great way to do that, thanks for that insider candid tip. A great way to do that is you go back to your list of company targets, right? Within those 3 buckets we talked about earlier, and let's say you have a top 10. Oh my God, this is our wish list of top 10 companies. It does require taking a little bit of time, and right beside their company name, you add an impact focus that you've researched for, and it could be just on their website. It could be you found an article in the local newspaper, or they were interviewed in the local, a radio station or television station, or you found out, oh, I didn't know they support that nonprofit. Start writing notes of where they have made a commitment to specific impact areas. It's a great way to have a target list but an impact cheat sheet right beside it.
And thanks, Steph. I think that's a great transition and reminder that it does not have to be a company's commitment, right? As you think about the layer cake of funding for your projects, this could be a very influential family member of a local landowner. This could be a large scale foundation that is interested in or has expressed some interest. But being able to align those projects to achieve a goal and improve goal 2, you're going to have to make those connections easy for the funder in a very short amount of time in order to build that relationship. So if you think I'm not in a position to raise large scale corporate support, that's fine. Replace the word company with any of your funders. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenna. Important. When you think about putting them together, one simple Mad Lib on one side, finding alignment, you've got the next simple Mad Lib on the other. So we are working on blank that impacts what, which will benefit who. And this initiative may be a good fit with your company's commitment to blank and help you achieve goal 1 and improve goal 2. This can be done in less than 30 seconds, but it's relevant to them, compelling, and distinct. That will help you at least begin to spark interest in building a relationship with you. Let's roll up our sleeves, right? Now, let me pause there for a second. Any questions, you can either unmute yourself, pop it in the chat, because really this is where we're going to put the Mad Libs to good use. We're going to put Jenna and Elisa on the spot for sure. They're going to work through this, my program impact, and how it aligns to your business goals. Anything related, any questions or comments? All right.
Okay. So I'm going to put myself in a real life example as coming off from on behalf of the nonprofit, and Elisa has offered to be my introduction partner, my intro. So in real life, I am on the board of the San Diego Food System Alliance, which is a backbone, a network organization that has just launched a 10-year vision to reform our food network in San Diego. And in real life, Dr. Bronner's is an extraordinary supporter of our organization, but it didn't come from me. It actually came from a longstanding relationship that I think took some time. And so I'm going to try to regain that support using this Mad Lib. And Elisa's going to provide a little feedback and some maybe insight into what was the original maybe impetus behind this. But Elisa, I just happened to meet you at the farmer's market, and it's so incredible to see you. I know that you are on my company, my nonprofit's list of VIPs. But we haven't yet, in this scenario, let's say we haven't gotten any support, and you and I have not met. So Elisa, hi, it's so great to run into you. How are you?
Great to run into you too.
Oh my God, first I got to tell you, I love your product. And I just saw the article on the New York Times, insane that the company is being so supportive to its employees through health and wellness with prescribing, was it mushrooms?
It's ketamine.
Ketamine.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. How do you feel about that?
It's such a great program. It's just completely cutting edge. And because ketamine is a legal treatment, that the company can support that for employees. And it's really impacted and helped people, including the president of the company had an experience with ketamine. And that is actually what instigated the policy. He had a really positive experience and it really helped him a lot. He's very open about it. And I think about 21 other people in the company have actually taken advantage of this benefit already. So it's really cool.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I had no idea about the personal connection there, but I have been following your work in your company for quite some time. What are you doing here today at the farmer's market?
Oh, I just need some salad greens. I'm planning on making a huge salad tonight. And do you have any recommendations? Like, is there a booth that you really like here?
Oh my gosh, yes. In fact, did you know that that actually the International Rescue Committee, so IRC, has an incredible group here of global growers that are starting micro enterprises from their small growings.
Cool.
It's called New Roots. Have you ever, you've got to. So they're in Jimbo's here locally.
Oh, cool.
If you haven't already, their booth is right there. I'll walk you over and introduce you to Anchi. She's one of their farmers. She's incredible. I actually got to meet her because I'm on the board of the San Diego Food System Alliance. And, one of the things I've been wanting to chat with you about is they're really working on this broad vision to reinvent the food system by 2030. And that will create this more just and more sustainable food system for farmers, for fishermen, for retailers, and for eaters like you and I. I mean, we're all eating, right?
Hmm.
And I'm really interested because I think, based on Dr. Bronner's commitment to environmental and social activism, just what you were just talking about, this broader vision could really help make a meaningful difference for the hometown right here in San Diego, which could include regenerative agriculture, more equitable supply chains, and even help reduce your environmental footprint. Food waste is a huge issue that we're working on right here and right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting. That's great that you're on the board. I'm so curious about what the vision is. Do you think we could, I don't know, maybe schedule a time to, like, I'd love to learn more about it when I'm not making a salad.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I'd love to introduce you. We have 2 co-executive directors, which is kind of a cool model that we're pioneering in terms of leadership. And maybe we could even take a walk instead of doing a traditional meeting. I know we've got a couple of folks on our team who are still immunocompromised. And if you would be open to that, maybe I could just connect you all and let you all take it from there.
Yeah, walking meetings are my favorite kind of meeting. So that would be terrific. I would love that.
Thanks, Elisa. Thanks for your time. Would it be all right? Should I contact you via your website, or are you comfortable enough to give me your contact information?
Yeah. Do you want to give me? I'll just text you my number.
That would be great. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay.
Good seeing you.
Good to see you. I'll follow up.
Great.
Okay, so Elisa, would you be willing to provide some feedback, candid feedback on what went well, what felt a little awkward, and what may or may not have made you give me your number?
Yeah, great. And I'm so curious what other folks here were feeling, because just being an outsider, kind of watching that, like, you can almost feel in your body, like, ooh, that felt good, or ooh, I'm not sure where this is going, or so, like, make a note of that, because your instincts are right. So I can give my opinion, but I promise you, everybody who's here, your instincts are spot on what you observed. So the first thing that was phenomenal and worked incredibly well is you didn't just come and like fleece me with a solicitation. So you didn't just walk up, oh, you're from Dr. Bronner's, do you want to fund my thing? And that happens more often than you would believe. And you can kind of like, when that happens, you can feel the person's anxiety. And so this was very natural. I loved that you were willing to introduce me to a farmer at the market. Like, it was very personal, and you just took the time to just have a little relatedness. And one of the things that I try to think of whenever I'm soliciting anybody, whether it's a individual donor or a foundation or a corporation, is I almost think of it like there are people, you're kind of on, the way we think about it is we're like on opposite sides of the table. So the person asking or the organization is on one side and the company is on the other side. And you kind of almost set the conversation up as if we're on opposite sides of the table. And I think what you did really effectively is you set it up so that we were on the same side of the table. So right out the gate, you came over to my side of the table and just got in my world. And now we're just both talking about something together. And it's not this almost like negotiation across a table. So I think that was really effective, and taking the time to do that was great. I think one thing that I almost thought about throwing you a curveball and being like, oh, I'm in a really big hurry, because that happens a lot. And then you're like, oh, I didn't talk about my thing. So I didn't do that, but it's good to be prepared for that. And I think if you had to, cut and run really quickly, like if I was like, oh, I'm running late, my husband's waiting for me or whatever, you could have possibly said something as quick as, oh, I'm on the board of the San Diego Food Systems Alliance. I would love to connect with you one day about that. If you have time, can I grab your number or something like that? Like just to, make sure you have something to take with you. Don't ever think in a situation like that you're going to get a donation out of, meeting someone at the farmer's market. Don't even frame it that way. I think that the best goal, and I think you held this really well, is get a meeting, like get a place to talk more. Because remember, it's my weekend, it's my free time, I'm not at work. So like be respectful of that, which I thought you were. And I'm just trying to think if there was anything I would flag. I think I might have like gotten to the like, hey, would this be something that you think you'd be interested in learning more about? That would be good. Write it like within the first 3 to 4 sentences. I might have added that, but I thought it was a really solid, just out of the blue thing. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would love to hear if anyone in the audience has specific feedback that they'd like to share. Would love to hear that. And in this point, I'd like to call Lynn from our audience. If Lynn, if you'll put yourself on camera, we have 2 volunteers, Lynn and Amber, who we're going to spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes with each of them. And I think with Lynn, I'm going to pair you up with Stephanie. And then Amber, if it's okay, I'm going to pair you up with Elisa. And you'll have to give Elisa maybe a 30-second background on what type of a funder she might be representing. And Lynn, if you would introduce yourself and maybe do 30 seconds of background, like introduce yourself to the group, tell them who you work for, what you're studying, and what your kind of where you are in the country. And then the scenario that you and Steph have met.
Okay. Should I start now?
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Len Mason. I'm in Gunnison, Colorado. I'm a student in the Outdoor Industry Master of Business Administration program at Western Colorado University. This is a career shift for me. My background is hydrogeology, and I've been an environmental consultant for about 20 years. However, I just was looking for something that was more aligned with my values, brought me a little bit more purpose in my life. So I am working right now, one of the interim dean of the Clark School of Environmental Management here at Western, just received a grant from the National Forest Foundation for innovative financing for national forests. This is just a program the National Forest Foundation has developed to help kind of develop and fund and support financing projects or innovative financing projects in national forests to deal with recreational impacts, water conservation, water quality, fire mitigation and whatnot. We're unique. We're looking at recreational impact. So we're looking at supplementing federal appropriations in Gunnison National Forest to address landscape level impacts that are beginning to affect the quality of recreational experiences.
Okay, so we had a little back and forth offline, and one of your target potential partners or funders in this was Vail Resorts.
Yeah.
And so the scenario is that Steph is role playing the CEO of Vail Resorts. You are both sitting actually at the bar at one of the resorts, and the CEO happens to be sitting to your left. And it's an outdoor bar, so that's great. And you're eating whatever you're eating. You're maybe not even having alcohol, but it's the afternoon and you've had a beautiful day on the mountain. And we're going to give you, let's say, 4.5 minutes. And Steph, I'll pause at 5. And let's give Stephanie your best go at your program impact, and then how that may relate to their business goals.
Now, I guess, should I focus this around kind of the model you gave us for creating this?
If you can, try to use the LIBS model. Yep.
We'll work that into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is on the spot. Hey, Kirsten, how you doing? My name is Len Mace. It's really nice to meet you. I'm a big fan of Vail Resorts, and Crested Butte Mountain Resort is one of my local ski mountain.
Fantastic. So you're having a good time. You enjoying the mountain?
I am. I'm just really happy to be out here today and enjoying the sunshine and spending a day skiing with my family.
Glad to hear that. We work hard for it, and it's nice to know that you're enjoying it.
Well, I know it's really been nice to see some of the improvements Vail Resorts has brought to Crested Butte Mountain since taking over the resort ownership. And I know you've all faced some struggles this year with the expansion of the Epic Pass, but it's I just wanted to let you know, like, I definitely see the impacts you're making on our community and improving some of the infrastructure at the resort. So it's really appreciated, and I think it's not recognized often.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's tough, you know, between some of the pricing pressures of Epic Pass and getting some of our local, you know, folks, the customers into the mountain here and enjoying some snow. Climate change is just beating us up. You never know what's going to happen, when we're going to have a good season or not. So it can tend to be a little frustrating. And then when we try to do something, you know, customers aren't really paying attention. So it can be an uphill battle.
It is, and it's always easier to criticize people than find solutions. And if you have some time, I'm working on a pretty interesting project here in Gunnison National Forest that I think you may be interested in if you have a minute.
I'm really super busy, but if you can give me a quick understanding, I know we do a lot of work around the Gunnison area. You know, what are you doing that's specific to what we might be interested in?
Well, we're looking at working at protecting Gunnison National Forest that will positively impact recreational opportunities and benefit our local communities and our visitors. Based on Vail Resorts' commitment to, pardon?
Keep going.
Oh, sorry. Based on Vail Resorts' commitment to natural environments and local communities, this project could help you achieve natural resource conservation, improve your image, showing Vail's commitment to positive impacting their local communities.
Well, certainly image does make a difference. I mean, I don't know, maybe you should talk to our marketing team. You know, I'm not sure, you know, if it's sort of an ad campaign or is this more systemic to, you know, our operations?
This would be a project I'd love to talk to your marketing team if they're available. And this is a project that doesn't necessarily directly relate to Vail's operations. However, it'll be making a big change and big impact in Gunnison National Forest. We're looking at redefining how public lands are managed and developing innovative ways, combining a partnership with our university and creating a learning laboratory to fund recreation management and design new adaptive management practices.
Well, it sounds interesting. I like that you mentioned you've got a collaboration already. We certainly like doing that. We like to support things that are already sort of on the move and established, and we're a part of a larger kind of initiative or collaborative. So I'm happy to at least, if you want to give me your information, I'm happy to pass it on to our marketing folks.
Sure. Yeah. And I think this would, here's my information. And is there a way I could follow up with your marketing team?
Actually, yes. Her name was, if you want to go ahead, Stacy Jones. And I can certainly share you, here's her email information, and reach out to her directly. That would be great.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. And I really hope you enjoy your time at the mountain and come back and visit us again.
Absolutely.
Well, fabulous. Well done, Lynn. I want everybody to give Lynn a big round of applause. It's so hard to get in front of a group. So applause from everyone. Well done, Lynn. You got the contact. That's fabulous. And, you know, Kirsten, I think was busy, but you engaged her time. I loved how you mentioned the university, the idea of creating a learning lab. I think you had her hooked. She threw you a curveball, right? She was like, hey, are you marketing? Are you operations? And you took it. Like, great job in taking that. So any other feedback for Len and for Steph?
Yeah. Len, thank you for being, on the spot. I thought you followed the Mad Lib very well without it seeming prescriptive. And I thought that was really, really cool. If you might have thought it was prescriptive because you were trying to fill in the blanks, but the way is just, here's what I'm working on. And based on what you're doing, I think it might help you achieve da-da-da. And it was seamless, and I appreciate that. And you also dealt with some interruptions well. And I thought you respectfully responded. And then you also were persistent enough. I was wondering if you were going to ask if you could contact the marketing person directly. You had the ability face-to-face. If we were just on the phone and I didn't know you and I hadn't had sort of this rapport face-to-face with you, I might have thought, well, that was a little more encroaching than you should have. Well, let me just contact that person directly. You did that nicely. It was a nice, professional, persistent push. So thank you to say, well, is it okay? Is there a way I could reach out to that person directly? And I felt personally enough, you and I were face-to-face, that I gave you that email. So very, very nice. You weren't.
Thanks. Thanks. I just would worry, like if I left it up to Kirsten, then it just, she is having a drink, she'll forget about it and it's not going to go anywhere. So
yes.
I'd rather just take the initiative and put the burden on myself.
Yes. The only other thing I would add, if you don't mind, Jenna, the only thing I would add, when I pushed you to figure out, because I'm busy, you're working on a project, I'm trying to put you in a bucket. Are you marketing, ops? Gosh, Gunnison, there's a lot going on. My job as a busy executive, I'm pushing you into buckets. Like, yeah, you're a nice guy. It seems like an interesting project, but it's not, where do I need to put you? And I pushed you a little bit for that of, well, I got visibility. I told you my 2 points of pain, climate change, and I'm not getting credit. You allowed, when I said, is this marketing or ops? You gave me a really good idea of how I could get a little bit more credit, visibility that my customers might notice. But I do think when you talk about sort of the co-benefits, dig a little deeper into not just protecting the Gunnison Forest, but this is central to the sustainability and protecting from climate change of downstream, whatever it is, so that you have your snow capacity is more consistent. Potentially, or I know you want to be careful about claims, but think about, Vail has been on your target list for a long time. Make sure those, co-benefits, why they should care, you've got a cheat sheet. Because I think the response could be, well, it's operations and marketing. And here's why it's important. You have to drive sustainability of your operations. You got to have enough snow.
Yeah.
You have to have the erosion protection, whatever it might be. Think through those little nuggets. Handled the marketing really well. So kudos.
All right. We're going to really, 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 one more time, just everyone give Lynn massive round of applause. Well done. So proud of you, Lynn. That was great. We're going to switch this over to Amber and Elisa. So Amber, will you give us let's do a 1 minute background on who you are and who you're pitching, and give Elisa the 30-second background also on this is a foundation, Elisa, and then we'll do it again. We'll have a 5-minute timer for the role play. So welcome, Amber.
Thank you, Jenna. Thanks, Elisa and Stephanie and Jackson, everyone involved, Lee. I'm Amber Morin. I'm with the Fort Huachuca Sentinel Landscape Partnership, and our mission is driven by 3 agencies: the Department of Defense, Department of Interior, and the Department of Agriculture, that came together in 2013 to help protect land around 10 now Sentinel landscapes and installation landscapes around the nation, really supporting natural resources, protecting national defense, and supporting local agricultural economies. So one of the biggest things that's most important to me is to reach out and bring new partners on board. And Elisa, one of the partners that I've been focusing on is the Dorrance Family Foundation. They are definitely somebody that's on my mind. Their mission is to improve the quality of life in the community by supporting education and natural resource conservation. And they do this through scholarships, grants, and volunteer service. So my former in with them, and you can play with this in the Mad Libs, is that I was a former scholarship recipient. So they invest their education money in Arizona. However, their natural resource dollars currently go to the states of Hawaii and California outside of Arizona. And I would like to bridge that gap, bring them on board with the Fort Huachuca Sentinel Landscape Partnership. So that's where we stand.
So I'm going to give a 5-second warning that not every partnership is a fit. So this may or may not lead into the exchange. And so Elisa, play however you think is this also coming to this. I want everyone to know Elisa's coming to this cold. She hasn't researched the Family Foundation. And so this is an example. It is not in no way, shape, or form a representation of the foundation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know nothing about this Family Foundation, so I might be using a lot of creative license. So, okay.
And then let's do 4.5 minutes and go, Amber.
Thanks. Hi, Elisa. It's so good to see you at the grocery store. How have you been? It's been a long time.
Yeah, hi, Amber. It has been. When was the last time we saw each other?
Oh my goodness. It's been a while. I want to say maybe 2012. It's been quite a few years since I've ran into you.
Yeah. Well, what have you been up to since then?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've been so fortunate to stay in the natural resource and conservation areas. And over the last 2 years, I've found myself as a civilian contractor with the Fort Huachuca Sentinel Landscape Partnership, which is a really interesting partnership and developed by Department of Defense, Interior, and Agriculture to really focus on protecting the specific installations around the nation for national security, natural resources, and to bolster local economies. So it's a really interesting place that I found myself in, something that I'm really passionate about, as you all know.
Yeah, well, it's always great to see one of the scholarship recipients really landing still in the industry and still doing good in the world. That's great to hear.
Thanks, Elisa. So, how have you been? It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, really good. Things at the foundation are going really well. My family is doing, the pandemic's been challenging for all of us, but we've been pandemic good, so no huge complaints. And yeah, it's been as good as it can be, and I'm glad to even be able to come into a grocery store and do my shopping.
Oh, I completely understand. Well, Elisa, it's interesting that you bring up the pandemic, because something that has really struck me is how challenging it must be for students these days doing mostly online work. And well, the partnership is actually working on an initiative right now called, the Joint Chiefs Project, which is through the USDA with Forest Service and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And it's going to actually impact the local area. And we're going to be doing a lot of watershed studies. And we've recently just developed a partnership with the University of Arizona. And there's a lot of benefits to the local economy, so we can understand fuels reduction work and how that actually impacts watershed flows. And that's something that's specific to the installation resilience against climate change. And I think there's a possibility that we could bring on some students. If you guys were interested in talking about that a little bit more, I would love to be able to bring some students to get some hands-on research experience with the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, well, we're always looking for good places to place students, and especially ones where alumni are working. It's challenging because our focus is really California and Hawaii, and we haven't really done a lot in Arizona. Have you done any work in the states that we're operating in?
So I haven't done any work in Hawaii and California, but I'd be open to having the conversation with, my contacts, but also if you guys would be interested in expanding your footprint, if there's any way that we could have those conversations, I'd love to talk with you more about that.
Yeah, the footprint expansion can be really tricky because it's a major investment. We don't usually just do like a one-off project in a state. We have a really big strategy around it, but Arizona has been kind of peripherally on our radar. So, and I think, it's clear that you have some expertise in what's happening in the state. So I'd love to pick your brain about that a little bit. I mean, no promises. I don't know that we're really going to expand into Arizona in the near future, but I would love to just use you as a resource to think about it. That would be really great.
Elisa, that would be great. Do you think we could schedule a time for coffee maybe in the next month or so?
Yeah, I would love that. Oh, it would be great. And then we can catch up a little bit more too. I would love to hear what you've been up to in the last 10 years. So yeah, let me make sure you have my phone number and let's do it.
Fantastic. I'll send you a quick email and we'll get it scheduled.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amber.
Yay! Huge round of applause for Amber, and thank you, Elisa. Well done. Well done. So pop in the chat. This was a tougher one, a much harder sell. Let's talk about absolutely what did Amber do right away that was really strong and really reestablish that relationship. Or take yourself off mute, or Elisa, please, if you've got that feedback in terms of the right away.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk all day. I'm curious, because this is like I love the interactive nature of this. I would love to hear what people think. Like, what do you all think? What did you see? People take yourself off mute. Or you can raise your hand. Okay, people are in the chat. Any suggestions? Okay, there's questions.
All right, so lots of praise, lots of great jobs.
Yeah.
So they took themselves off.
Pam had mentioned here, often the geographic areas are set pretty hard. So any suggestions on how you go about the second part of that conversation, getting Alyssa to think of ways to consider Arizona? Because to be quite honest, Alyssa, you gave her that bone to say, oh, instead, you said, I would love to use you as a resource. That's a way of establishing and to be a little prepared of maybe that would be the case, Amber. You might have said, well, if I can't get her right now to consider Arizona, what else could I offer her? Some experience, a lens, Elisa, you gave her that, but be prepared. That would have been something interesting to kind of be able to say, oh, we're working in Arizona. Is that something you'd consider? Well, we've got hard lines on geography. Well, at least might I be able to offer, we could at least brainstorm some ways, what we're learning and what you're learning between geographies might be valuable to exchange. Boom.
Right.
And it could have kind of, that was nice of you to do that. But think about that, not just, what you could offer of, I want to get a meeting, so I want to get their support, but what other value could you offer?
So Steph, if you don't mind, go to the next slide.
Absolutely.
And we'll just to recognize, they don't always fit. So in
Yes.
the instance where it feels like the funder, the partner is potentially saying no, it is key to be able to, one, listen, and two, respect what they're saying, and three, think about, are there other things that either you can offer them or they could potentially offer you that are still benefiting, still growing that relationship? It just may not be a financial transaction. And so, Amber, if you had a meeting with the Joint Chiefs coming up, and you might say to Elisa, wow, it might be lovely to introduce you because, or I know that clearly in California and Hawaii, there are bases where they're facing similar challenges, and just wanting to make sure that these teams. So there may be something else that you can offer if that funding isn't a fit. And I just want to clarify also, we have 4 minutes remaining.
Yes.
So Steph, if you will kind of just wrap us up.
Yes. And again, thanks for, whether there's a good fit or not, sometimes a no gives you more time to get to the yeses. When we think about after the introduction, what works and what doesn't, we've been role playing a lot of this, but it's call out what sets you apart, highlight a one big achievement or one collaboration that you're working on, mention what's at stake. You don't have to be over dramatic about it, but say, and the reason this is important is, and then quickly shift to their business benefits. You want to listen more than they talk. If you have the meeting, the call after the introduction, and be prepared to ask good questions. That shows that you're curious and concerned about creating a good alignment. What doesn't is start out with a long explanation of your history, right? Asking for money right away. Again, you could offer other things that are shared value. And don't go over your allotted time. If you've set up a 30-minute call or a 1-hour walk, you want to be very conscious of that time. And don't wait till the end or forget how to highlight how they benefit. Very, very important what's in it for them. We've established sort of, sorry about that, this sort of how you might go about cultivating a relationship. We've talked a lot about the partner introduction, but that's just the spark. How do you cultivate that relationship? Because actually getting a commitment on support, money, involvement, influence takes a little bit of time. So this is just a snapshot of how you might work through emails. How long is too long to persist? When do you actually send an email? When do you send another email? This is what has been a successful sort of pace that we found might be helpful for you as a template. From here, you think about, you've got an email introduction, right? These are the tools you really want to be able to master. You want to have a great email format, simple, short. You want to be able to be prepared for a 30-minute call and a 60-minute presentation after that, or at some point that's sharp and with decision makers with a little bit more information about what you're working on, why they should care, a little bit more of the partnership opportunity. And then the other tool is your program proposal. When they said, yes, this sounds great, what might it look like in action? And you want to be able to have a really tight program proposal. Those are sort of your cultivation tools that you should have in your toolbox. I know we've rushed through this last part, but I want to just call attention before I thank you. Some templates we have for you. And certainly if you're interested, we can provide a copy of this deck and you'll get an idea of the email introduction, the proactive outreach plan, and what those tools include. And you'll see, here's an email template using Mad Libs. Not just here's what I'm working on, why you should care, but create a sense of urgency and using bullets and hyperlinks to summarize what the next step is. And then here's a proactive outreach template, what each of these should include. And lastly is here's your toolkit and what sort of a checklist of a 30-minute call involves versus the 60-minute proposal or the more detailed program proposal, and what businesses really want to know in that proposal. I'll pause there and go back to our thank you slide and know that our information is here for you, and happy to answer any questions and see if anyone has any feedback or next steps.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Jenna, Stephanie, Elisa, our fearless Mad Libbers and volunteers. If folks didn't walk away with a little additional confidence and chutzpah to go tackle some of their potential corporate partners and contacts, to mine their geography and their network a little bit better, and to do so with more panache, style, connectivity. I love the analogy of changing from a transactional across the table conversation to being on the same side of the table. I think that that is the route to a heck of a lot of intelligence on how you actually cultivate that relationship, create that shared value system, and then hopefully at the end of the day, find more beans to make the projects go, so to speak. So I just want to really give a heartfelt thank you to our presenters, to everyone who joined us today. We are out of time for questions, unfortunately, but we'll be back on here April 12th for the 5th and final session of this Learning Lab series. And that is going to be a similarly fun and interactive session. It's our dolphin tank, not unfriendly like a shark tank might sound, but to have some of our session attendees actually make a longer 10-minute pitch to a panel of friendly dolphins for some constructive feedback, some pointers, some potential connections, and to actually help move those projects forward. We do still have, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackson, I think we still have one slot for a very brave, I don't know what ocean animal to reference, participant to do a pitch to the dolphins. So please drop Jackson and me a note if you're interested in that opportunity. We'll work with you beforehand to make sure you're well prepared and that you'll be effective and have fun doing your pitch to a live studio audience. So please join us back here on April 12th. Get in touch if you have something. And just to come back to this session, I think we all needed this in terms of how we right-size our expectations and actually make some progress in how we think about cultivating corporate relationships and building bridges to corporate support to advance all of our efforts. So Jenna, Stephanie, Elisa, Heisted team, thank you so much for sharing your insight and wisdom with us today. And we'll see folks again here next month. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.